जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय श्री राधे। जय राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर राधे। जय दामोदरा 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 जय दामोदरा। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। ISKCON संस्थापकाचार्य Savior the whole world जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction. Text number 35. Iti uktaha saha khalaha papo ityuktasya khala papo bhojanam kula pamsanaha bhojanam kula pamsanaha bhaginim hantum arabdham भगिनीं हन्तुमारब्धं खड्गा पाणिः कचे अग्रहीत खड्गपाणिः कचे ग्रहीत इत्युक्तस्य खलपापो भोजानां कुलपांसनः भगिनीं हन्तुमारब्धम् खड्गपाणिः कचे ग्रहीत। इत्युक्तस्य खलपापो भोजानां कुलपांसनः भगिनीं हन्तुमारब्धं खड्गपाणिः कचे ग्रहीत। इत्युक्तस्य खलपापो भोजानां कुलपांसनः भगिनीं हन्तुमारब्धं खड्गपाणिः कचे ग्रहीत। इत्युक्तस्य खलपापो भोजानां कुलपांसनः भगिनीं हन्तुमारब्धं खड्गपाणिः कचे ग्रहीत। इति उक्तः। Thus being addressed, saha, he, Kamsa, khalaha, envious, papaha, sinful, bhojanam, of the Bhoja dynasty, Kulapam Sanaha, one who can degrade the reputation of his family. Bhagini, unto his sister. Antumarabdham, being inclined to kill. Khadgapanihi, taking a sword in his hand. Kache, hair. Agrahit, took up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Kamsa was a condemned personality in the Bhoja dynasty because he was envious and sinful. Therefore, upon hearing this omen from the sky, he caught hold of his sister's hair with his left hand and took up his sword with his right hand to sever her head from her body. Please repeat this translation after me. Kamsa was a condemned personality in the Bhoja dynasty because he was envious and sinful. Therefore, upon hearing this omen from the sky, he caught hold of his sister's hair with his left hand and took up his sword with his right hand to sever her head from her body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kamsa was driving the chariot and controlling the reins with his left hand. But as soon as he heard the omen that his sister's eighth child would kill him, he gave up the reins, caught hold of his sister's hair, and with his right hand took up a sword to kill her. Before, he had been so affectionate that he was acting as his sister's chariot driver. But as soon as he heard that his self-interest or his life was at risk, he forgot all affection for her and immediately became a great enemy. This is the nature of demons. No one should trust a demon despite any amount of affection. Aside from this, a king, a politician, or a woman cannot be trusted, since they can do anything abominable for their personal interest. Chanakya Pandit therefore says, Vishwaso naiva kartavyaha strishu raj kuleshu cha. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So these words are spoken by Ityuktasya Khala Papo, Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami is speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. He is describing the events leading to Krishna's birth. So the description is being given that Vasudeva married Devaki, and Kamsa, the brother of Devaki, was personally being affectionate to his sister, was driving the chariot in which both Vasudeva and Devaki were seated, and as the chariot was proceeding, the band was playing very nicely, and it was already described Devaka had given a big dowry, being very, very rich king. He had given a big dowry. And this procession was very nicely moving. Suddenly one voice, unembodied voice from the sky, announced, addressing Kamsa, that you are such a fool that you are driving the chariot of the woman whose 8th child will kill you. So here, Shukadeva Goswami is describing what is Kamsa's nature. Ityuktaha saha, saha means Kamsa. After hearing this, khalaha papaha. Khalaha means he is an envious person and he is sinful. Two typical characteristics of somebody who is a demon: envious and sinful. This does not mean those who are opposite of demon, that is divine nature. It doesn't mean that in the material world, even if somebody is divine nature, it doesn't mean that they will never be sinful, they will never be envious. That is only possible for somebody in the spiritual world or somebody who is a pure devotee. Otherwise, the conditioned nature is that we are subject to the influence of the 3 gunas. And the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna makes us behave in a envious way sometimes. Sometimes we commit sinful activities. But demons, irrespective of whether they are situated in Sattva Guna, Rajoguna or Tamoguna, they are envious and they are sinful. So try to understand in Bhagavad Gita, therefore, Krishna differentiates the influence of the gunas, which he elaborately describes in the 14th chapter and the 15th chapter and the 17th and 18th chapters. He distinguishes it from 16th chapter where he describes divine and demoniac nature. So as a conditioned soul, everyone is subject to the influence of the 3 gunas. And generally, the influence of the gunas is always a mixture of the 3 gunas. In the material world, except for somebody situated in pure devotional service, there is no pure goodness. There is no pure goodness. Neither there is pure passion nor pure ignorance. Because even animals predominantly in the mode of ignorance. Even among them, the cow, the monkey, and the lion. 3 animals, 3 kinds of animals are described as all are predominantly in the mode of ignorance. But cow is more sattvic than the other 2. Lion is more Rajasic than the other two. Monkey is more Tamasic than the other two. So, to understand this, you have to carefully study the 14th, 15th, 17th, and 18th chapters, in which the influence of the gunas is elaborately described by Krishna. Now, come to 16th chapter. 16th chapter doesn't talk about the gunas, it talks about the nature of conditioned souls, and that also of human beings. Not of animals, not of birds, not of other creatures, only human beings who have a sense of discrimination by virtue of their merely taking birth in the human form. That's why throughout the scriptures, Durlabham Manusham Janma, Arthadam. It is very, very, it is full of values. Arthadam is translated by Prabhupada in so many ways, explained by Prabhupada in so many ways. The Acharyas have explained this. Arthadam means full of values, very, very meaningful, distinctly different human form of life. Even though Adhruvam, it is temporary like all other life forms. Human form of life is also temporary. But it is very, very meaningful, full of values. What is that? A human being has got the sense of discrimination, because of which a human being can utilize the human form of life for ultimate liberation, complete liberation from all material bondage. And that's not possible in other forms of life. So here, the description of Kamsa as an envious and sinful person, elsewhere you can see Indra sometimes commits some sinful activities, even though he is divine nature. Vishnu Bhaktas Mruto Daiva. All devatas are divine nature persons. But they do sometimes commit sinful activities. Sometimes they become envious also. Indra becomes envious of some sage who is performing a lot of austerities. Indra is envious that that sage may overtake him in terms of accumulating punya and then overthrow him. His position he may lose as king of heaven. So Indra also sometimes becomes envious. But in spite of Indra being subject to such influences, the instances cited in the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, when Hiranyakashipu went away to do tapasya, Indra and the devatas, they immediately went to Hiranyakashipu's palace that was in the heavenly kingdom and immediately decided to arrest Hiranyakashipu's wife. Why? Because she was carrying in her womb Prahlad. So they were taking her away from the palace, and on the way Narad Muni intercepted Indra and the other devatas. That why are you? She was crying and she was begging for help. So Narad Muni intercepted, stopped Indra and said, why are you troubling this woman? So Indra explained, we don't want to harm her, but she is the wife of a big demon who's harassing and torturing the whole universe. So in her womb is the seed of that demon. So as soon as the child will be born, we're going to kill this child so that he'll not grow up to be another big demon who will unnecessarily give trouble to all the people in general. So we are not going to trouble her. We are not going to do any harm to her. So then Narada Muni explained, the child inside her womb is not a demon. He is a great devotee of Vishnu. Immediately, Indra and the Devatas not only released her, but circumambulated her, paid obeisances to her. And Narada Muni said, you can go. I will take care of her. So that is the nature called divine nature. You see, divine nature. As soon as he heard the child is not a demon, immediately Indra admitted his fault. In ignorance he had acted, and he corrected himself instantaneously. And see the immediate reaction of Kamsa when he heard a child of your sister will be the cause of your death, will kill you. Immediately, what was his reaction? Kill her. Immediately. But because Kamsa is a conditioned soul, he is subject to influence of the gunas. All conditioned souls are subject to the influence of gunas. Not only Kamsa or not only demoniac natured people, divine natured people also. So when Vasudeva later on pacifies and promises to give every child born of Devaki hand over to Kamsa, Kamsa agrees to release Devaki, not to harm her. Now that is the influence of Sattva Guna. That is the influence of Sattva Guna. But how long will that last? Because he is demoniac nature, when he consulted his other demoniac associates about what happened and how there was an omen, and he was about to kill Devaki, but his own sister. But then Vasudeva pacified him, and therefore he released Devaki. And the other demons, they advised him, oh, you've done a great mistake. You've done a great mistake. So you shouldn't have released her. You should have immediately killed her. But anyway, even now it's not too late. And they say any child could be dangerous. It may not be just the 8th child. Even the first child could be dangerous. So don't take a chance. So immediately, what was his reaction? Again, immediately reaction. Arrest Vasudeva and Devaki. And every child that is born, immediately he will kill the child, so that his life is secure. So it's described here, Kamsa was a condemned personality of Bhoja dynasty because he was a demon. And what's the nature of a demon? Envious and sinful. Upon hearing this omen from the sky, he caught hold of his sister's hair with his left hand and took up his sword with his right hand to sever her head from her body. He was immediately ready to kill her. But Vasudeva was also very quick in stopping him. And that will be described in the next verse. But here, Prabhupada in the purport says, Hamsa was driving the chariot and he had been so affectionate as to personally take charge of driving the chariot. But when he heard, as soon as he heard that his self-interest or his life was at risk, he forgot all affection for her. So this external behavior of a person in this material world is to some extent influenced by the gunas and the external conditions. But the behavior that comes out of one's inner nature is dependent on whether one is divine or demoniac nature. This is the difference. So there is the influence of the gunas, and at different times the gunas dominate differently. That is described in the 14th chapter. Carefully read this and understand the difference between the behavior of a person due to the influence of the gunas and the behavior of a person because of divine or demoniac nature. This you should learn to distinguish. This is very, very, very important. Even in our dealings with Vaishnavas, sometimes we are very idealistic. I think Vaishnava means all good qualities. Yes, Vaishnava means all good qualities, but when a Vaishnava has not perfected his devotional service, some influence of the gunas will still be there. And at different times, different gunas influence will act. So sometimes when there is influence of Rajoguna, Tamoguna, then the devotee, the sadhaka, it doesn't apply to pure devotees, it applies to only sadhakas, that they may display some not so good qualities externally. Externally, the behavior may be according to the influence of Rajoguna, Tamoguna. But because they are Vaishnavas, inner nature is what? Vaishnava. Divine nature. So therefore, they can be corrected. They can be instructed. They can be advised. They can be stopped. And the best example is Indra. So many examples. And the second point here is, one is the demoniac nature. Nobody should trust a demon despite any amount of affection. Because, again, we should also understand both demoniac natured persons and divine natured persons are basically spirit soul. And spirit soul means asangoyam purushaha. Spirit soul is spiritual by nature, 100% spiritual by nature, and has got as spirit soul all good qualities, all divine qualities, 100% divine qualities. But in association with this material nature, one develops a certain kind of nature, acquired nature, conditioned nature, which is a combination of Sattva Guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Now in addition to this, a soul also develops
another kind of nature which is called divine nature or demoniac nature. So, two kinds of nature for a conditioned soul. For a pure devotee, there is no acquired nature, there is no development of divine or demoniac nature. No. For a pure devotee, it is only purely spiritual qualities. All auspicious, all divine, 100% divine. Whereas for a conditioned soul, two kinds of nature. Acquired nature due to the association of the three gunas, and a development of a certain mentality, especially as a human being in the human form, which is either divine mentality or demoniac mentality. So this behavior according to mentality, developed mentality, is deeper than the behavior according to acquired nature. Acquired nature. So this has to be carefully discriminated or distinguished. So this demoniac mentality, how much ever we preach to them, it is difficult for them to take up Krishna consciousness. Whereas acquired nature, whether somebody is sattvic, rajasic or tamasic, if they are not demoniac mentality, they will accept Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Prabhupada says, all over the world, there are this divine natured or divine mentality people, though they may be sometimes predominantly tamasic or predominantly rajasic. Not necessarily all of them will be predominantly sattvic. Sattvic people, very easy to recognize them, to preach to them, to make them Krishna conscious, very, very easy. But rajasic or tamasic natured persons, unless they have the divine mentality, the mentality they develop independent of the influence of the gunas. Independent of the influence of the gunas. And this mentality development is more due to the association of other persons than the external atmosphere in different situations or conditions. The acquired nature is purely due to the influence of the association with the gunas, situationally, conditionally, in dealings with different people, in different circumstances, different types of calamities or different types of nice situations, whatever. Every moment we are subject to the influence of prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. That is going on. But the mentality one develops is by association with people. Specifically associating with a certain kind of people. And those who are too much into sense enjoyment, lording over, they always associate with others with whom they can develop the mentality how to exploit everything for their sense gratification. how to exploit people and lord over them. Always seeking that association. That is the demoniac tendency. And the divine tendency is that I want to make a solution to all problems, but I want to do it in a proper way. Not that at any cost I'll secure my life. No. So, a divine tendency is characterized by the inclination to follow scriptural injunctions, to follow rules and regulations, to be regulated. And the demoniac tendency is not to follow the rules, regulations, not to lead a regulated life, even though one can, one will not. So Prabhupada explains very clearly in the 16th chapter what is the most essential difference between the demoniac nature and the divine nature. It is that one class are regulated and they follow the injunctions of the Shastras, and the other class is necessarily unregulated and they will not follow the scriptural injunctions. So you should study this very, very carefully to distinguish the influence of the gunas and the influence of the mentality, divine or demoniac mentality. In the 16th chapter, the 6th verse, 16.6 verse, very, very, very important point. That Prabhupada says in the purport, there is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of scriptures. One who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in scriptures and who act according to his whims is called demoniac. There is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of scriptures. Here, in the beginning of this purport, Prabhupada says, the conditioned living entities are divided into two classes in this world. Those who are born with divine qualities follow a regulated life. That is to say, they abide by the injunctions in scriptures and by the authorities. One who does not follow the regulated principles as they are laid down in the scriptures and who acts according to his whims is called demoniac or asuric. So somebody may be very, very sattvic person, but if he does not follow the scriptural injunctions and acts whimsically, he is demoniac mentality. Another person may be very rajasic or tamasic, but if he follows the scriptural injunctions and does not act whimsically, he is divine mentality. So very, very carefully. So that's why studying Bhagavad Gita is not merely superficially reading or just going through the verses. No. The purports are so very important. And without the purports, we cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. Impossible. It's impossible to understand Bhagavad Gita without the purports. So to very carefully study. And this point is missed out by many, many people. Even though they read Prabhupada's books, even, but they miss out this point. That the essential difference between divine and demoniac nature is that divine nature are regulated. They follow the injunctions of the Shastras and the spiritual authorities, and the demonic nature will not follow. They act whimsically, even if they are educated, even if they are having discrimination power, even if they are advised, even if they are taught what is Shastra, what is regulation in the Shastra, everything, if they know. Like Hiranyakashipu is the best example. When Hiranyaksha died and Hiranyakashipu's mother and his sister-in-law were very much affected by grief over the loss of husband and son. So Hiranyakashipu pacified them and he began to speak philosophy. He explained the difference between the body and the soul. And so nicely he explained to them and pacified them. Person is not the body, person is the soul. So nicely explained. So he is in full knowledge. Full knowledge. I am spirit, soul, I am not the body. Very clear. He was not affected by his brother's death. The way his mother and his sister-in-law were affected, he was not affected. And very sober way he preached to them. And the details are given in the 7th canto, 2nd chapter. How nicely he pacified them by preaching to them. But he is a big demon. In spite of all this knowledge, he is a big demon. So, unless one has got sattva-guna, one cannot acquire knowledge, especially knowledge of the spirit soul. So, he has got sattva-guna to be able to acquire this knowledge and so nicely explain it, not only having that knowledge, but also explaining that knowledge to somebody who is aggrieved and pacify them effectively. But when it comes to demoniac mentality, all this knowledge, the soul is thrown to the winds. So therefore, we have to carefully study the Bhagavad Gita and understand these things. And even here, it's very clear that Vasudeva, because he is divine natured, the way he is behaving is different than the way Kamsa is behaving. In spite of the same situation, Kamsa's life is in danger, how he is reacting. Vasudeva's wife, Devaki, is about to be killed, how is Vasudeva reacting? Immediately next verse will explain that. These contrasts are there in this chapter. It's very, very interesting. So carefully study this chapter. Every verse, every purport, translation, word for meaning, carefully study. I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.